Friday with all those screaming kids, and they were excited to be there. I was listening in on ESPN Plus, and I'll tell you, that's one of the loudest environments you can get in Murfreesboro. But they were able to pull out that win, got another win later in the week, but this was going to be a solid test for them. Tech was 2-0 coming into this game, and there's no underestimating the amount of talent that the Golden Eagles have. They have a lot of great players at their disposal, and they're able to keep up with a lot of teams in the Ohio Valley Conference, and that's kind of what we saw last night. But although the score may say that Tennessee Tech won by 9, it's important to note that really it was pretty evenly contested for the most part, at least in the early going. You got to give credit to Macy Pfeiffer last night for Middle Tennessee. Ended up going for 9 points in that first quarter alone, 13 points overall. And also guard Yuhan Lin. She's been developing a lot as this season has progressed. Showed a lot of potential last week. And last night led the Lady Raiders in total points, 17 points, 7 for 9 on her field goal percentage split. And also shout out to Blair Bogus. She had a great game for Middle Tennessee, double-digit rebounds once again. Remember, she had 2 back-to-back double-doubles last week for the Blue Raiders in their 2 games and was the CUSA Freshman of the Week. So there's no doubt that this team has talent, even with a lot of the new pieces that they're trying to fill in. I think the issue for Middle Tennessee in last night's game were the turnovers and probably the inconsistency when it came to their offensive output. They showed stretches of dominance, but they weren't able to fully pull it together. And that's to be expected with a younger team, a team kind of trying to find their footing. And they showed a lot of promise, especially early on in that first quarter. We saw how they were able to get out to an early lead. Macy Pfeiffer, I think, had 9 of her 12 total points in that first quarter, if I'm not mistaken. She did 9 of 13, I should say, just to clarify. So she got off to a really hot start. The offense kind of followed suit, and everybody was able to start putting things together more and more as time goes on. However, like I mentioned, it was the consistency that didn't really stick throughout the rest of that game. Raiders had 19 total turnovers last night. 8 of those came from Yuhan Lin, unfortunately. And again, I think that's part of a play style thing, trying to figure out how to get this offense in rhythm, but also trying to find your identity. What do you prefer to do? Drive inside? Do you prefer to kick it out? It's stuff like that that MTSU is going to have to figure out more and more as time goes on. But it's important to note that, again, they have the potential to do so. And they've got guys on that coaching staff, Rick Insel, Matt Insel, chief among them, that know how to get teams into shape. So I've got no doubt that they're going to figure it out more and more as time goes on. No reason to panic from one loss. Tennessee Tech is going to be, I think, a pretty solid team in the OVC. So there's a lot that MTSU still has the opportunity to correct, and I think that they will. Got to give quick credit, though, to Larisha Cawthorn for Tennessee Tech last night. 21 points against MTSU, really took it to that Raiders defense. She is looking like a really solid star for Tennessee Tech, so got to mention that. MTSU is going to have their opportunity to turn things around relatively soon. They play Rice on Saturday at 2 p.m. That game is going to be in Houston. Now, in the past, that would have been a conference game, but as you may know, since Rice moved to the American in 2023, that has changed. That's now an out-of-conference game, so that still takes some getting used to in some respect. But that's going to be an out-of-conference game Saturday at 2 p.m. Interested to see how the Lady Raiders respond in that one. Tonight, right here on WGNS, we've got men's basketball action. Voice of the Blue Raiders, Chip Walters, will be on the call. They're taking on the Evansville Aces on the road. That will be at 7 p.m. with our pregame show starting at 6:30. Getting set to take on Evansville on the road, and what's going to be their first D1 test of the season. Now, in the first 2 games of the year for MTSU, the offense has looked near unstoppable, 100-plus points in back-to-back games. However, it is important to add some context to that because, as we know, MTSU last week played Milligan and Webster. Now, Milligan is a solid D2 team. Webster, one of the best teams in their Division III SLIAC, that is the St. Louis Intercollegiate Athletic Conference. So these aren't necessarily bad teams for the level that they play. It's just that when you compare that to the D1 competition, obviously it's not going to be the same thing, which is not a slight against either one of those 2 teams. But I'm very curious to see how MTSU responds on the road. Anytime you go on the road for the first time of the season, you really get your mettle tested. And this is going to be one of those moments for MTSU where they're going to discover a lot more about who they are and what they can do. It's one thing to have the home court advantage, have all your fans cheering for you, and to have the clear talent level above your opponent. This is going to be a bit more evenly matched, so you learn a little bit more about your identity, how you play, what your structure is. That's going to be a key question for MTSU to answer in this game, and it's going to be fun to see who shows out for the Blue Raiders. Kamari Lands has been playing some fantastic basketball this season. 21.5 points per game on average. He showed out both times he played. He had a really good first few minutes against both Milligan and Webster. It seems like at the start he kind of just takes over games, so I'm curious to see if he'll be able to replicate that tonight. Of course, preseason CUSA All-American as well, so Kamari Lands certainly a player to watch for this middle team. And Chris Loof, boy, he has taken a massive step up this season. I was actually on the call on ESPN Plus for the MTSU Webster game this past Saturday, and his dominance in the interior was something special. He got his first double-double of his career against Milligan, is averaging 17.5 points per game right now, and he's just looking like a really solid player. So Chris Loof deserves a lot of credit for taking a step up so far this season, and credit to that entire offense and the way they play team basketball. Thus far this season, they've done that really, really well. Spreading the ball out, getting more players opportunities, getting that scoring output for everybody. It's not been just one guy kind of taking over a game. They kind of take turns letting one guy show out. We saw Trey Green do that, I believe, late in the first half against Webster when he got, I think, 4 or 3 threes in a row. So that's the thing with this MTSU squad. They're very heavily reliant on the three ball, but when they get that three ball going and when they get everybody involved with the passing game, they're a hard team to defeat. So Evansville is going to be an interesting test for them. Aces are 2-1 on the season. Only loss of the year is to the Purdue Boilermakers. Lost that game 82-51. They've also played a couple of out-of-division opponents, much like MTSU in their other 2 games. So it's tough to say exactly how much of a test Evansville's going to be and how they're going to match up with MTSU. But one thing I can say is they've got some good talent. They've got players who can score points. A.J. Casey, he's a player I would keep an eye on, averaging 13 points per game so far. He's going to be a pretty solid test for the MTSU defense, which at times did struggle against some of that deep shooting from Webster and Milligan. So I'm very curious to see if A.J. Casey and the Aces will get something going. And if they do, how will MTSU respond to that? And can MTSU keep the rhythm up offensively? We talked about that earlier with the women's basketball game, but can you keep that offensive output that you had before, which isn't to say you're going to get 100-plus points tonight, but can you keep that rhythm? Can you keep that drive going in this game? If you can, it's going to be a much easier time for you. And lastly, on our first segment, we will briefly discuss MTSU football. They'll be taking on Western Kentucky, 2:30 on Saturday. So I've been talking about this with a lot of my fellow MTSU students and sports media students. Everyone agrees, and I'm sure all of you listening in agree as well. This is going to be a big game for MTSU. Hasn't been the start this year that they would hope for, but there are things to be motivated about, and there are things that MTSU can stay positive about, and they're going to have to going up against Western Kentucky. They should have a lot of motivation coming into this game after what happened against FIU. Never want to give up that many points on your home field and have what happened in that second half happen. So I think that's going to be a big key for MTSU, is looking back at that game saying, hey, we got a really, really hard shake in that second half, but we've got talent. We've competed in virtually every other Conference USA game this season. Let's put that behind us, put it on the back burner, and go out there and perform. I'm curious to see how that response will go, especially in a hostile environment in Bowling Green and Western Kentucky. Now, I think a lot of people may have a misperception about Western Kentucky this year. Usually when MTSU plays Western Kentucky, they have a tremendous air raid style offense, and they still do to some degree, but it's not quite as explosive as it has been in past years. And this is a team that has looked vulnerable against several CUSA opponents. I think they are third in the CUSA standings right now, but they've needed a little bit of help and some lucky breaks against certain opponents this year. Had to go to overtime to beat Louisiana Tech in Ruston. They lost 25-6 to the same FIU team that just beat MTSU. So it's not just MTSU that got beat by multiple scores. Western Kentucky had the same thing happen to them. Lost 45-21 to Toledo, and they had the number 110 rushing offense in the country. So I think the key for MTSU in this game is pretty simple. If you can stop the Western Kentucky offense and their quarterback, Rodney Tisdale Jr., then you've got a great opportunity to come away and at least make it competitive at the start, stick around until the third or fourth quarter, and take this one on the road. I think they've got every incentive and every ability to compete, and we've seen how MTSU has responded against some pretty solid opponents this year. If you'll remember back earlier this season to game number 2 against Wisconsin, they were hanging in with the Badgers for a pretty significant amount of time. Kind of had the game get away from them in the second half, but they were keeping it close for a pretty good portion of that game. Same goes for the Jacksonville State game, the Missouri State game, the Delaware game, Kennesaw State, all of whom are pretty solid as far as the CUSA standings go this season. MTSU has really been in all of those games. The only games really that you can say that were an out-and-out just MTSU could not hang with this team, you could argue, was the second half of FIU and maybe the late portions of the Austin Peay game. But outside of that, this team has been pretty competitive all the way through. They have won on the road this season, got a 14-13 win over Nevada. I think that's the key for MTSU, and the important thing for them to keep in mind is let's make sure to stick around until the third or fourth quarter. Don't let the Western Kentucky offense get settled in with the passing game. Keep Tisdale Jr. from getting comfortable in the pocket. Get some of your playmakers like DeMonte Smith, Brandon Buckner, and that secondary to make some huge plays. And you might just have an opportunity to come away with a victory on the road in Bowling Green. Big opportunity for MTSU, as I've mentioned a few times before. Very curious to see what the response will be from the Blue Raiders, but I'm telling you, I'm very excited to see it. It's always a fun environment whenever MTSU goes to Bowling Green, and I think there are going to be a lot of players on that roster, a lot of coaches, and of course a lot of fans who are going to be very eager to see MTSU win that battle in the 100 Miles of Hate. That game will also be right here on WGNS, courtesy of the Blue Raider Network. When we come back on All Sports Talk, we'll talk a little college football, Week 12 playoff rankings reaction, and we'll preview some of the big matchups coming up in college football this week. Stay tuned right here on WGNS.
Clark's Auction Company will get you top dollar for your property.
Auctions are easy, fast, and profitable.
Whether you're buying or selling a home or commercial property, the auction is just so much easier, quicker, smoother.
My wife and I sold our personal home. Parks Auction helped us with that. The house brought about 20% more than we were going to ask for.
Visit parksauction.com.
Clark's Auction Company will get you top dollar for your property.
Clark's Auction Company, committed to auction excellence.
Sold it to you, 27.5.
Are you paying too much for home and auto insurance? Let the experienced professionals at My Team Insurance in Murfreesboro help. With decades of experience, their team provides superior customer service, low rates, and a clear understanding of your coverage needs. Whether it's home, auto, health, business, or life insurance, My Team Insurance makes protection simple and affordable. Visit myteaminsurance.com today. That's myteaminsurance.com. My Team Insurance, proud supporters of the Blue Raiders.
Every team knows which play can be a winning move. I'm State Farm Agent Andy Womack, here to help life go right by combining your home and auto insurance. Call me today at 615-890-0850. It's a winning move that saves you time and money. Your ride, your stuff. You live with them together. I'm State Farm Agent Andy Womack. It's smart to protect them together, to help life go right. Give me a call at 615-890-0850 and let me help you save by combining your auto and renters.
Whether you need general vehicle upkeep and maintenance or a complete vehicle overhaul, Hall's Auto Care is here for you. We're locally owned and operated by Greg Hall and have been in business since 2014. You'll get excellent service and trustworthy advice with Hall's Auto Care. A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau. We're ready to help get you safely on the road. Hall's Auto Care, 907 Ridgely Road, just off Broad Street behind Chili's. Online at hallsautocare.net. Hall's Auto Care.
Jennings & Ayers Funeral Home has served Murfreesboro families with compassion and care since 1880. As a family-owned funeral home, we're committed to honoring every life with dignity through traditional services, cremation options, and pre-planning that gives you peace of mind. For over 140 years, we've been here when it matters most. Visit JenningsandAyers.com. Jennings & Ayers Funeral Home, honoring life and comforting families since 1880.
This is Chip Walters, and I'm honored to be your 2024 MTAR Realtor of the Year. I'm with Exit Realty Bob Lamb & Associates, and like many of you, I've seen the real estate market shift and change. People often ask, Chip, what's really going on? Well, that's a great question, and I believe in answering with solid, factual data. So let's cut through some of the noise. I invite you to reach out. Let's have a conversation about your real estate goals and the current market trends in your neighborhood. You can find all my contact information at choosechip.net.
Good afternoon. It's pretty heavy over here now on 24 east and westbound around Shelby as you come up past the football stadium as traffic starts to increase with that volume now to Madison as we check it out live. It's already been busy up there on 65 North at Rivergate Parkway. We have seen plenty of radar on 24 out through the Antioch area, mostly in Rutherford County this afternoon. Hey, when you need dependable towing for your car or big truck, no matter what county you're in, here in Middle Tennessee, call STR Towing and Recovery. I'm Commander Chuck, your on-time traffic.
It's all sports talk from the Good Neighbor Network, FM 1019, 100.5, AM 1450, wgnsradio.com, and Big G TV.
Welcome back into All Sports Talk. WGNS time is 5:24 on this Wednesday night. Dylan Simmons with you, first ever time. Hope you're enjoying it so far. We got a lot more to come right here on All Sports Talk tonight. Now we're going to talk about my personal favorite sport, and that is college football. The college football season this year, and I've told a lot of my friends this, it's been a very strange one. A lot of ups, a lot of downs, and a lot of things that you wouldn't expect or maybe would have expected. And as per usual, you never know exactly what you're going to get. But I want to briefly mention some college football games and the playoff rankings here in this segment. So I'll start with the playoff rankings, which were released last night. This is going to be for the upcoming Week 12. I have several reactions and several things to say about it. As far as the top 10 goes, and if you haven't seen it yet, I would highly advise going to the CFPrankingswebsite.com. You can take a look at it. I've actually got it pulled up right here for myself. Number 1, Ohio State. Number 2, Indiana. 3rd ranked Texas A&M. 4 is Alabama. 5, Georgia. 6, Texas Tech. 7, Ole Miss. 8, Oregon. 9, Notre Dame. And 10 is Texas. So, as I was saying, the top 10, I think, is pretty agreeable overall, at least as far as where teams are ranked and where they should be ranked. Now, there are a couple of arguments that could be made about maybe swapping some teams, putting them here instead of there. The one that really sticks out to me is that Oregon is at 8, Ole Miss at 7. Now, Oregon just went on the road and won in Iowa City against the Hawkeyes. That's a really hard place to play. We've seen time and time again teams get defeated by Iowa in that sort of environment, especially in primetime, which I believe that was a 2:30 game, but it eventually went into night. So it became one of those very frustrating environments for Big Ten teams. But Oregon didn't flinch. They found a way to win, got that walk-off field goal. Credit Dante Moore and the Ducks for doing that. But the reason I bring it up is that Ole Miss played the Citadel this past weekend. Now, Ole Miss has plenty of solid victories this season, but it does make me wonder, do you almost pole vault Oregon over Ole Miss? Because both of them got passed up by Texas Tech, which I understand. Texas Tech boat raced a top 10 team in BYU, so I get putting them up at 6, but I may swap Ole Miss and Oregon. But that's kind of just me grasping at straws as far as the top 10 goes. Otherwise, I don't see a huge problem with this. One thing that I am curious to see is how the middle part of the rankings play out. So you've got Texas at 10, you got Oklahoma 11, BYU's 12, Utah 13, Vandy is at 14, Miami 15, Georgia Tech 16, USC 17, Michigan 18, Virginia 19, Louisville 20. So let's digest those middle 10 for just a moment. I think the first thing that I notice is that the ACC, they're in a really troublesome spot. Full disclosure, I am personally a Hurricanes fan, so I'm a bit more invested in this than some other folks may be. But I've also been keeping an eye on Vandy, as I'm sure a lot of you have this year, a lot of Vanderbilt fans in the area, so this is important for a multitude of reasons. But as far as Miami and the ACC go, this is a potential disastrous scenario because the ACC, if things work out a certain way, may get to a point where they don't have any teams in the CFP. Now, I bet you're wondering how that could happen. Well, here's how. Duke currently only has one conference loss, 5-4 overall. If they win the conference, they're going to be the ACC champion, but with those 4 losses, they may be on the outside looking in. How could that happen? Well, USF is currently 7-2. If they win the American and James Madison, who only has one loss right now, wins the Sun Belt, they're going to have a pretty good argument to both be in above Duke. And I'm not sure that Duke would be able to win that. So if you're the ACC, you got to hope that whoever wins the conference is not Duke, basically. It's going to have to be Georgia Tech, either them or Louisville, maybe Virginia. I think Louisville's probably out of the running at this point because they've got 2 conference losses. Same goes for Miami. So you want Georgia Tech, to probably be that team that wins the ACC, if not Virginia. I just don't know if I trust Virginia at this point in time to be able to pull that off. So Georgia Tech down at 16, by the way, despite being an 8-1 team. So that kind of just shows you that the committee's not really valuing the ACC right now outside of maybe Miami, just because of Miami's out-of-conference wins and the head-to-head against Notre Dame, which is a whole other can of worms. I think Miami is going to be the team to watch in the CFP rankings because the Hurricanes have a path to get there, but they need a lot of stuff to happen in front of them. You've got Utah, Oklahoma, and Texas all ahead of them right now. Texas and Oklahoma both play against top 10 SEC schools, top 5 SEC schools, as a matter of fact, in Alabama and Georgia this weekend, which we'll get into a little bit more later. So they could both fall out. BYU has a tough game coming up against Cincinnati. They could potentially lose before it's all said and done. Utah's got a few tough opponents in the Big 12 as well. Vanderbilt still has to go on the road to Tennessee, which is no gimme, especially Neyland in November. I can't remember the last time that Vanderbilt won in Knoxville. It's been a while. So there is no guarantee that Miami won't find a way into that top 10. And if they do, they're probably in the playoff. So I think Miami, if they win out, is the team to watch in the CFP because they've got the out-of-conference wins to maybe get in for the ACC as an at-large, and maybe then somehow the ACC gets 2 teams in. But there's a lot left to be determined on that. Big question, though. If it does come down to Miami at 2 losses, and then you've got Texas and Oklahoma, both at 3, would they consider giving the nod to Texas or Oklahoma? That is a really good question because how much do you value the SEC schedule? I think that's been a big talking point among people this year, and I'm not sure the committee wouldn't put both of those teams in over Miami. So it's just one of those things where you're going to have to wait and see how things play out. I think Miami feels that if Texas and OU both lose, they'll pole vault above them. But the biggest things for Miami is to just take care of business, to win out. They still have to play NC State. They got to play Pitt, final game of the season, and they got to go to Virginia Tech in Blacksburg. So not a lot of gimmies as far as Miami goes from here on out. So I'm curious to see how they do down the stretch. And again, looking at the rest of these rankings, you've got Iowa at 21, Pitt's at 22, Tennessee at 23, South Florida is at 24, and Cincinnati is at 25. So when you look at the remainder of these rankings, I don't know if anyone outside of maybe South Florida and Pittsburgh really has a leg to stand on as far as getting into the playoff. I think there is a case to be made that if Pitt wins out, because they've only got 1 conference loss, and in this case, they'd have a win over Notre Dame. If they win out, go 11-2, obviously they'll get in as an ACC champion, but maybe they'd even have an at-large argument. We'd have to see how that would all work out and how the rankings would look at the end of the year. But I personally think that Pitt is the most dangerous team in the ACC right now. So I'm very curious to see how Pitt will do, especially because they have to play Georgia Tech and Miami down the stretch. As far as the SEC goes, it's pretty simple, pretty rudimentary. Bama and Georgia and Ole Miss all seem to be locks, Texas A&M as well. If Texas and OU both win, I think they're both probably going to get in. But that's a tough thing to say because they both looked kind of troublesome at points this year, haven't been able to fully put their games together, especially in this latter half of the season. Texas played well against Vanderbilt, but will they be able to keep that going? That much remains to be seen. So it was a very interesting edition of the CFP Top 25 rankings this week as I fold the paper over the microphone. There are a lot of fun games in college football this weekend as well. I will briefly skim through those. We're going to talk a little bit of Texas versus Georgia to start. Texas number 10, Georgia number 5. Texas has the number 61 scoring offense in the country, averaging 29.6 points per game right now. Georgia's got a top 25 defense, but they have the number 58 passing defense in the country. And Joey Aguilar and Ty Simpson both played well against Georgia. So I think Arch Manning has the potential to have a great day. However, Arch has been inconsistent in his own right, did what he had to do against Vanderbilt, has had good stretches this season, helped Texas to overcome Mississippi State late in the fourth quarter of that game before he got knocked out in overtime. So he's got the dog in him, as the kids would say, but is he going to be able to handle the Georgia defense, especially in Sanford? That's going to be a tough ask for anybody. So I'm going to say Georgia's probably going to win this game, but if Texas wins, look out, because I'd say they've got a really solid shot, even at 3 losses, of maybe making the playoff, depending on how the committee views them, because even with a Texas A&M loss, if they play them close, might have an argument there. So it's going to be very, very peculiar to see how that all goes down. Number 11, Oklahoma takes on number 4, Alabama. OU has a tremendous defense. Number 7 scoring defense in the country for Oklahoma. They've looked solid all season as far as that goes. The quarterback play has been hit or miss, I would say, over this last half of the season, and that's mainly because of the John Mateer thumb injury. As we all know, he, I believe, broke his thumb or fractured his thumb against Auburn. His doctor fixed him up. He was able to come back in for the Texas game. Didn't go all that well, but give credit to Oklahoma. Despite the Texas loss and the Ole Miss loss, they have not quit on the season, and they've kept playing. They beat Tennessee in Neyland, not an easy thing to do, and now they've got an opportunity to play a team that they dominated last season at home. Now, this is a whole different scenario, or as a great coach of the Philadelphia Eagles once said, this is a horse from a different fire department, because Alabama's number 4 in the country, and they've got a tremendous amount of offensive consistency, which they lacked this last year. Ty Simpson currently 3rd in the Heisman odds, which he's behind Julian Sayin, which also Fernando Mendoza is as well. I don't really get that, because to me, I would probably have Mendoza at the top and then maybe Sayin at 3rd behind Simpson. I think it's mainly a stats thing, and I get that Ohio State's number 1, but to me, Mendoza's done a better job of elevating Indiana than Sayin has of elevating Ohio State, because Ohio State's already talented, not to say Indiana or Alabama isn't, but I think there's a negligible difference that you have to keep in mind there. But all that being said, Bama's won 8 in a row dating back to Florida State. They've won a lot of games close this season as well. Still can't run the ball all that effectively. They've tried to integrate that more into the passing game with some passes in the flat, getting the ball to Jam Miller, whatever the case may be. But they've got the number 119 rushing offense in the country. So it's a very, I would say, not great offense, for lack of a better term, when it comes to the rushing game. As I said, OU won 24-3 last year, so they've got that side of history working for them as well. But this is going to be a really tough test for both teams. I think Alabama being at home is certainly going to have that advantage to work with. But Oklahoma is a team that's going to be playing in desperation mode, backs against the wall. They're going to have their own reasons to go out there and take Alabama to the woodshed and get a victory. I'm going to say Alabama wins this, but I think this is going to be a closer game than Texas-Georgia. I just think that Oklahoma matches up well with Bama, especially with that defense. They may be able to get after Ty Simpson and challenge him in the secondary in ways that teams have not been able to this season. So really curious to see how that game will go. And finally, we will briefly mention this. Game day heading to number 9 Notre Dame against number 23 Pittsburgh, or number 22 Pittsburgh, I should say, in the latest rankings. Notre Dame, much like Alabama, they've won, I believe, 7 games in a row now, dating back to those losses to Miami and Texas A&M. Level of competition hasn't been the best, but you got wins over USC and Boise State and Navy. They haven't really faced a significant road test, though, since Miami. So this is going to be their first really tough road game, I think, since the Hurricanes. CJ Carrs look poised. The defense has improved, and they've got 2 fantastic running backs. Pitt, Mason Heinschel, he's played great this season over the last 5 games. They've been 5-0 with him. Pat Narduzzi said this was not a must-win game, which, you know, I have a lot of opinions on that, because personally, I'm not a football player, so I can't speak for a football player or a coach. 100% discretion there. But to me, I feel like every game would be a must-win game. And as far as the playoff race goes, you may still have an argument, slim as it is, to maybe be in an at-large spot. So to say a game is not a must-win, I just don't understand that. But again, I'm not a head coach, and I'm not the one who makes decisions at Pitt. That's up to Narduzzi. He can approach this game in whatever way he wants. But rest assured, this is still a very, very important game. And Pitt, they've got a fantastic offense. This is no longer your grandfather or father's Pitt Panthers. They've got a tremendous passing game. They've scored 48, 34, 30, 53, and 35 over their last 5 games with Mason Heinschel, and he's thrown for over 1,500 yards and 12 touchdowns. So this guy has every capability to go out there and burn your secondary, and we saw how Marcel Reed was able to do that for Texas A&M earlier this season. So I think this is going to be a really competitive, really fun shootout-style game in the noon to 11 a.m. window on ESPN, or I think it's on ABC, actually, as a matter of fact. I'm going to say, though, that Pitt might just shock Notre Dame and get the victory here. Either way, this is going to be a fun one. I plan to be making sure to keep an eye on this game as time goes on our Saturday. So that is our college football talk here on All Sports Talk. When we come back, we will give a brief overview of some of the high school football state tournament games coming up this weekend. We'll touch on Division 6A and some of the private school action as well. So make sure you don't go anywhere right here on WGNS.
Sign-ups are going on right now for First Shot's Winter Basketball League in Rutherford County. Coach Andy Herzer guides kids to sharpen basketball skills and build teamwork through exciting clinics and games. Since 2003, First Shot has empowered youth to grow in mind, spirit, and body. Don't miss out. Join the fun and develop lifelong skills. Visit FirstShotTN.org today and register for the Winter Basketball League. That's FirstShotTN.org.
When illness or injury turns everyday moments into uphill battles, there are medical professionals who step in with skill, compassion, and unwavering dedication. My name is Joey P. I'm CEO of Murfreesboro Medical Clinic, and we are proud to highlight this month's MMC Heart for Healing recipient.
Dr. Michael Herlovic is knowledgeable and attentive, taking time to listen to patient concerns and provide clear explanations with appropriate referrals. Patients consistently report feeling well cared for and appreciate his thorough patient-focused approach. Congratulations to Dr. Michael Herlovic, internist at Murfreesboro Medical Clinic, a trusted physician making a real difference in Rutherford County.
Help us recognize these medical heroes in our community. If a doctor, nurse, or medical professional has made a difference in your life, tell WGNS. Help us recognize the medical heroes in our community by nominating them for the MMC Heart for Healing Award. Compassion deserves recognition, and healing begins with the heart.
When it comes to your home, memories and sentimental value are priceless. Farrah Construction can remodel your home, or can update your kitchen, bath, or other rooms. I'm Ron Hall. If you can dream it, Farrah Construction can turn it into reality. Call Farrah Construction at 615-893-6120. That's Farrah Construction. I'm Ron Hall. Shop local. Let our family business help you. Farrah Construction Company.
Next on All Sports Talk, it's the Blue Raider Insider Report with Chip Walters of Exit Realty, Bob Lamb & Associates.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Coming to you from Evansville, Indiana. Middle Tennessee's men's basketball team, with its 2-0 record, gearing up for its first road test of the season to open a 5-game road swing. The Blue Raiders will be facing the 2-1 Evansville Purple Aces tonight at the Ford Center. The contest tips off at 7 o'clock. You can hear it right here on the Blue Raider Network and WGNS beginning at 6:30 p.m. Middle Tennessee owns a 3-1 all-time record over the Purple Aces, winning the last 2 matchups. Evansville won the lone matchup in Evansville in 2010 by a 3-point margin. The Blue Raiders come into the game 2-1 after averaging over 100 points in their first 2 games, beating Milligan and Webster. There were 10 double-figure scoring outings in the 2 contests for Middle, highlighted by a career-best 21 points from Kamari Lands against Milligan when he went 9 for 12 shooting in that game. Again, we'll have it coming up tonight at 6:30 with the pregame show. Tip-off just after 7 o'clock right here on WGNS. Women's basketball, you heard that here last night as well. The Lady Raiders suffered their first loss of the season, falling 63-54 to Tennessee Tech at the Eblin Center. Tech remains unbeaten after the victory. The Blue Raiders jumped out to an early 21-13 lead after the first quarter behind some hot shooting from freshman guard Yuhan Lin, who finished with a team-high 17 points on 7 of 9 shooting and added 2 steals. Despite holding a 5-point lead at halftime, Middle struggled to maintain the momentum as the Golden Eagles outscored the Blue Raiders 22-11 in the third quarter. Freshman Macy Pfeiffer added 13 points, including 3 3-pointers, while senior guard Elena Contreras tallied 12 points. Freshman guard Blair Bogus pulled down a team-high 12 rebounds for the second straight game and chipped in 6 total points. So again, the final score in Cookeville was Tennessee Tech 63, Middle Tennessee 54. Speaking of Lady Raider basketball, Middle Tennessee has announced 2 signees in the early signing period. Aaliyah Blanchard, the 5'11 guard from Hoover High School in Alabama, a 3-time state champion and Hoover's team captain since 2023, enters her senior season as one of Alabama's most productive and efficient perimeter players. As a junior, she averaged 13.8 points, 7.1 rebounds, and 2.6 assists per game. She shot 73% from the field, including 36% from 3. The other signee, McLean Bobo, a 5'9 guard from Tullahoma High School. She's a steady multi-sport athlete who has already scored over 1,100 career points for Tullahoma. She averaged 18 points, 3 steals, 2 assists per game as a junior and earned District 8 3A MVP honors, a 2-time selection to the District 8 AAA season team. She has also made the district tournament team twice, winning 2 District 8 AAA tournament MVPs in addition to her season MVP award. Speaking of awards, Middle Tennessee tennis senior Freddie Murray has been recognized by the Conference USA as the Conference USA Athlete of the Month for October, according to a release from the conference office on Tuesday. And some news out of Blue Raider football earlier in the week. Middle Tennessee head coach announced that he and wide receiver coach Cornelius Williams have parted ways. Offensive analyst Coley Crowley will serve as the interim wide receivers coach for the remainder of the 2025 season. The Blue Raiders travel to Bowling Green to take on Western Kentucky this Saturday. That's it today from Evansville. We will have the broadcast coming up in about an hour right here on WGNS.
It's all sports talk from the Good Neighbor Network, FM 1019, 100.5, AM 1450, WGNSradio.com, and Big G TV.
Thank you, Chipper, giving us the Blue Raider Insider Report right here on All Sports Talk on a beautiful Wednesday night. You know, they say that the Aurora Borealis might be out once again tonight. I can't wait to go outside and check it out for myself. I was driving home last night, didn't quite see it. I was a little disappointed, so I was like, man, hopefully I'll get a chance tonight. And they say that it's going to be out, so we'll find out soon enough. But we're not here to talk about the Aurora Borealis. We're going to light it up with something else, and that's sports right here on All Sports Talk, and specifically Tennessee high school football. Hey, it's the talk of the town every single day, especially this time of year, and there are some very interesting second-round matchups coming to Division 6A, as well as some other divisions that we'll go over here on our final segment of the show. This was briefly talked about on the show yesterday as well, so I won't dwell on the first-round matchups for too long, but we saw a lot of the Murfreesboro schools have success. Blackman defeated Gallatin by a score of 24-9. Oakland was able to get a 42-10 win over Cookeville. They continue to be a dominant team all season long. We also saw Smyrna play Green Hill, another Rutherford County school. Didn't, unfortunately, go the way they wanted that one to. 42-14 was the final score in that one. However, in other good news for Murfreesboro schools, we saw, I believe it was, I'm trying to find the exact score total, but we also had Riverdale pick up a nice victory. There we go, against Lebanon, 28-7. Had to look on my sheet for just a second. So the Murfreesboro and Rutherford County schools are showing out as far as the state tournament goes, and it's going to be very interesting to see how they do in the second round. But I'm going to go over a couple more first-round matchups from some schools that are relatively in the area. Antioch beat Shelbyville Central 42-13. Full disclosure, I call for the Golden Eagles actually on the radio, and I'll tell you what, Antioch's got a fantastic quarterback, Andre Adams. He's played sensational football all season long, led that team to a 9-1 record. They're going to be a very dangerous team throughout the remainder of these playoffs. They have to go to Collierville, though, which is all the way down towards Memphis. So they got a long way to go. It's part of the interesting, unique aspect, I guess is the way I'll word it, for the new Division 6A and really the entire state football tournament brackets, because they've reorganized everything. So you get some very curious second-round matchups as a result. Teams having to travel fair distances that they probably haven't had to travel all season long. Brentwood will be taking on 10-0 Southwind in round 2 as well, after they picked up a 33-14 win over 4-6 Rossview in the first round. Southwind won 41-7 over Arlington. So Brentwood, another team that has a really solid pass and run game, a lot of solid superstars. They will certainly be a significant test for undefeated Southwind at this point in the season. And also keep an eye on Ravenwood, folks. I don't know if Ravenwood has gotten a lot of discussion, but they're another team that plays in the general area that some of our listening audiences here is in here on WGNS. They're going to be taking on 3-7 Houston, who actually pulled an upset over Germantown 33-22 in the first round. Ravenwood is a really solid team, and I would not be shocked if they end up making the state championship game. They've got two fantastic quarterbacks, Femi Babalola and Maverick Chance. Both are D1 commits. They're actually the only school in the country to have two quarterbacks who both are committed to D1 schools. Babalola is currently committed to Boston College. Maverick Chance is committed to Navy. And they both play their own unique style of football. Babalola, more of your traditional passer, while Maverick Chance is more of your triple option style quarterback, and they fit those roles really well. It's really interesting, too. They kind of swap out with each and every possession. So they're a really fun team to watch. Got to see them in person a few weeks back in Shelbyville. They're going to be a dangerous team throughout the rest of the season. Oakland takes on Bradley Central in round number 2. They will be hosting them this Friday at 7 p.m. Oakland, of course, goes without saying they've been dominant all season, 11-0 now after the 42-10 win over Cookeville. I think many people are presuming that they will end up making the state championship game. Obviously, they've got a lot to come as far as who they're going to play down the stretch. But make no mistake about it, they are a really, really, really good team. We saw that last year as well. They're going to be fun to watch throughout the rest of the state tournament, especially considering some of the teams they may have to play in the future. If they do win against Bradley Central, they will play the winner of Green Hill and Science Hill. So going to be interesting to watch that. Riverdale, another Rutherford County school, takes on Maryville. That will be coming up on Friday. A far drive for Riverdale. That's all the way up in East Tennessee near the Smoky Mountains. Love the Maryville area. So it's going to be fun to see how Riverdale handles that environment and handles that kind of road trip. And finally, Blackman takes on another East Tennessee powerhouse, Dobbins-Bennett, who's 9-1 on the season, but had a little bit of trouble with Farragut. Only won 27-21. So Dobbins-Bennett may be in for a heck of a test against the Blackman Blaze. It's going to be a fantastic matchup. Blackman also 9-1 on the season, going to be 10-1 following their win over Gallatin. That game, of course, will also be Friday, November 14th at 7 p.m. And then, folks, believe it or not, we've got quarterfinal matchups coming up in the week after that. It's crazy to think that it's already here. I tell my parents and my family and my friends this all the time as well, but time just continues to fly, especially as you get older. Albeit I'm only 22, but time still flies nonetheless as time goes on. Also got some of the Division 2 Class A games that we'll go over briefly. Nashville Christian will be taking on Jackson Christian. That's a rematch of a couple playoff matchups that those two have had before. Middle Tennessee Christian School will be taking on Trinity Christian after MTCS throttled Chattanooga Grace 62-14. They'll be going on the road for this game. Trinity Christian won 55-7 over Franklin Christian. So that's going to be a fun matchup coming up down the line as well. They're already in the quarterfinals, so whoever wins these quarterfinal games, well, they'll be a part of the Final Four. So that just makes the stakes that much higher for MTCS and all the schools that are in Division 2 Class A. And, of course, a lot of other big-time matchups coming up throughout the world of Tennessee high school football. For more coverage on that, stay locked into WGNS. We'll have more of that as the time comes. WGNS time is now 5:52. As Chip mentioned in the Blue Raider Insider Report, as we'll briefly go over it, a couple new signees to the MTSU women's basketball team. Heard about McLean Bobo. I can personally say, as somebody who has called games that she was a part of before, really solid player and a really good shooter. She's going to be a heck of a player for MTSU women's basketball and the Lady Raiders down the line. Got to give credit to Matt and Rick Insel for what they do as far as recruiting, getting players from the area to join the team, also recruiting overseas. They get all kinds of talent, and it works out more often than not. So they continue to build even as the season progresses, and it's really fun to see how this team has built themselves up. Curious to see how they'll continue to build themselves up down the line. Another thing to keep in mind, folks, MTSU volleyball will be playing this weekend, Friday and Saturday, in their final series of the regular season. That game will be held, or those games, I should say, will be held at the Alumni Memorial Gymnasium. I think you can also watch those games on ESPN+. So if you can't make it out to the gymnasium, make sure to do that because they've got a really spirited team. They've played a lot of games at home this year, and we're not complaining about it. But this is going to be their final series of the regular season. So we will see how the volleyball team does, and hopefully they'll be able to lock down a couple wins to end out the 2025 regular season in CUSA play. Should be a lot of fun. And also keep in mind, folks, as I've mentioned before, men's basketball will be playing tonight. They're on the road at Evansville taking on the Aces, as we mentioned previously. Chip Walters will be on the call for that game right here on WGNS Radio, courtesy of the Blue Raider Network. Tip-off is at 7 p.m. with the pregame festivities and the pregame show beginning at 6:30 p.m. sharp, so make sure you don't miss it. As for this week, I want to thank you all so much for tuning in. Hopefully you've had as much fun as I have. It's been a blast so far on my first episode of All Sports Talk, and I'll be excited to join you each and every Wednesday in the weeks to come. We'll have special guests on. We'll talk more local sports as well as sports across the country. So thank you all so much for tuning in once again. For my producer, Jackson, I am Dylan Simmons saying so long and have an electric night, everybody.
This has been All Sports Talk on WGNS and Big G TV, where we hit every level of the game, from the preps to MTSU across Tennessee